Bigfoot Odyssey is a researcher's report. I'm your host, Kerry Arnold. With me, as always, producer and co-host of the report, Miss Daniela Aiello. How are you tonight, dear?
I'm good tonight. Trying to keep warm in the free UK weather.
Yeah, well, you say it's 8 degrees. When you say it's 8 degrees here, yeah, there's icicles hanging off of everything, and it's 32 is freezing here. 0, I guess, is freezing there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's I used to know the formula, but I have to. That's what we got cell phones for now. But we have a great show for you guys. Cryptid Studies Institute is getting ready right now. They were having a little bit of issues with the internet lagging, so they're going to be on here in just a minute. Myself, I got gnats in here from the pumpkin I left. Myself and Brad are going to be leaving next Friday, heading up to Oklahoma to see Mark Copeland, Mr. Livewire. We're going to be telling his story and doing his Odyssey. That should be lots of fun. And then December 4th, we're heading down to Florida. So we've got travel shows planned, and we'll be with Donnie Miller and Jeff Townsend. Just saw Jeff Townsend. He came to the house last night. We went out to eat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was definitely. He's still in Mississippi, and hopefully he'll get to make it by to see us. And Mark and Melanie Zasky from Crypto Reality are going to be already talked to. I talked to them. I got to get in touch with Donnie just to make sure that time is good. I'm sure it will be. Jeff said he was going to be able to make it down. But outside of that, Daniela, what you got going on, Hidden Existence?
Well, I've got a new show coming up. It's 6-part show, 6 shows. It's called the Cryptid Crypt, which is not always that easy to say fast. And I'll be doing it with Ronald Murphy, who's the crypto guru. And each week we'll be covering different cryptids one by one, go into detail about the history and everything.
Nice.
Vampires, lake monsters. There's all sorts. So that hopefully will be starting this weekend. Fingers crossed. If not, next week for sure.
Cool. You know, as soon as we finished Spook Week here, Danielle sent me a message. She says, we need to get ready for the 12 days of Christmas.
Well, it takes planning, doesn't it?
It does. You're right. Especially when it's that close. You spent a couple of months getting Spook Week together. So, yeah, you guys might be seeing some familiar faces for the 12 days of Christmas.
Yeah.
You gotta get the blue line.
Yeah.
Blue line.
Yeah, should do. And if anyone's got any suggestions for maybe new faces over Christmas or some old faces, put them in the comments. I'll leave them in the chat, and we'll see what we can get.
Yeah, put them in the comments, or you guys can email us. There's 4 or 5 different emails you can use: bigfootodyssey@gmail.com, yourbfstory@gmail.com, readmynarrative@gmail.com. That's for the Shudder, actually. And someone had sent me a message that they had a bunch of stories, but they were all fiction. And I'm thinking about whether or not I need to do that. I don't know. I think the whole appeal of the spooky and crazy, and I mean, even though I did it this past Halloween, Shudder was obviously some made up stories, but for the most part, the Shudder is supposed to be actual accounts, but they're hard to find, and not a lot of people are sending me their stories. And and it's not just Bigfoot stories. For the Shudder, it can be anything: Dogman, ghost story, anything that scared you really bad. You saw shadows in the house, ghosts, whatever. There's one here, pops up every now and then. Linda says it's a female, and I need to leave her alone. Those are her words. I don't do anything.
What can you do?
Yeah, what can I do? Of course, I'm going to leave her alone. Linda actually ran into this thing in the hall one night, and scared the ever living out of her. And apparently, it was there and then gone. It was like a surprise thing. So that hasn't happened to me yet. I have seen it a couple times going between. I was sitting on the couch one day, and I was here by myself, but I had to get up and look because I thought Hunter was here, our 16-year-old. And you see those gnats flying by the camera. There's 2 of them, and I'm trying to kill them. But I thought he was here. You know, he's a pretty good sized kid. And I had to get up and look because I was at the bar, and it's probably 20 feet to see the opening, you know, for the hallway. And I know I saw somebody walk by there. It wasn't direct, but it wasn't really far out of the corner of my eye. It was like, you know, just right there to the side. And I saw somebody walk by. It was dark, whatever it was. So I went and looked. Nobody in the house. So that wasn't the first time. I've seen this thing many times. Haven't really heard anything that I couldn't say wasn't the house just creaking. You know, this house was built in 1995. I think it's not that old, and it's brick. So I don't know, but it has gabled ends.
But
And
it's about the land it's on, isn't it? It's not necessarily the house, but the land that you're on. So
yeah, well, this house is built into the ground. You know, you got this. There's ground level, and there's a creek not too far from here that floods. But it's as soon as you come in the door, you step down 3 feet into the kitchen, and then the living room, and then the dining room, and all the rest of the rooms are up on level. So it's pretty secure. I don't know. What do you think about ghosts and banging and stuff like that? I don't. How can something disembodied? I just never understood that. And even voices. How can something that doesn't have a voice box to vibrate it?
Energy.
Got to be electronic, right?
Some sort of energy. I have a weird spot in my kitchen where I call it a hot spot, where I walk into a hot bit of air. And it is usually around the cooker, but the cooker is not on. There's no heater in the kitchen. There's not a kettle on. There's nothing. And even when I touch the cooker, it's cold. But I walk into this just like a little area of hot, warm air. I felt it today, actually. It's really weird.
It's usually the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. This is what makes it really weird. That I can just walk in and suddenly go, oh, I feel like I want to go straight away to like the cooker on. And it isn't. It's like it's cold. It's just one area.
Well, we've seen little orbs flying on live on camera all around you. You know, it's not dust. The one just went by. Just unbelievable. What timestamp? 8 minutes exactly. Go back and look. You'll see it. It just kind of zigged as soon as I said it. It was weird. It just zigged up. That was crazy. Kenny Stafford, large black panthers make that story list, Kerry. Okay. I think I know what you're talking about. Those are really not scary, you know. Those unless someone gets stalked by one, I suppose it would be. But you know, I go through every Bigfoot report I can find, and there are a lot to go through. They're just not all, you know, they're pretty anticlimactic for the most part. You know, a glimpse, I saw something from 100 feet away and it walked into the woods. You know, there's just not a whole lot to, you know, I'd have to change the name of the show of the of the channel to sightings or something.
I've been thinking about something Dark Waters had said about, you know, when he could hear it in people's voices. And there was that woman who was trying to who was describing something. She was obviously in a car filming something. And I think for some people, like I had that thing follow me growling. But I don't know what it was. And I think when you don't know, you're more curious and maybe come across less. Why would you be worried if you don't know what it is?
I think Dark Waters is a little on guard, probably. I think he was trying to be hard skeptic, and that's I guess not a bad thing to be. I think if he got to know us a little better, he might loosen up and maybe have a little bit different opinion of those things. I kind of sprung it on him. It's not like he knew we would do what we were doing at all. So, you know, in his defense, I'll say that much. But when I saw it, I thought it was genuine, that she saw something. I don't think it was staged at all.
No, but I didn't know, and I wasn't meaning that it was staged, just that some people's reactions are different. She's trying to describe
Yeah.
something she didn't know. If she'd never heard of Dogman or a Bigfoot, she'd have nothing to worry about. She'd be just thinking that's. I mean, it takes a while to process things, doesn't it?
Well, and you feel safer in your vehicle. You just
Yeah,
do. You
yeah.
can, especially if it's running, you can just throw it in gear, take your foot off the brake, and go. You know,
And
and
your
I thought it was
encounter,
a bear myself. It
yeah.
just everything about it screamed bear, standing up, eating something out of a tree.
Mm.
It wasn't, it was the claim was Dogman, but that's NVTV. They do those things.
Your encounter, though. I mean, I know you originally you thought it was a person, but you knew
Mhm.
there was something off. But
I felt like it, yeah.
at that stage, you were more curious than frightened, I
Well, there
guess.
was there was a very inharmonious range of emotions going on there because at first I was really excited. I had a bunch of turkeys coming to me, and then I went from excited to instantly angry.
What's
They
going
are
on?
getting after it, whatever they're doing. They like to chew on things now. They're almost 5 months old, so they're still chewing. Get out of here. All right, they made it back. And then from, that to instantly terrified.
Yes.
Oh, welcome to the show, the creators of Cryptid Studies Institute. Johnny,
Hello. Hello. Can you hear us now?
we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, it sounds better. So now,
All right.
could the young lady say something?
Yes. Hello.
Oh,
That sounds
hello. Yes, we hear you fine now.
good.
Now we can be properly introduced.
Yes. I
Yes.
think no delay either. Sounds good.
Yes, much better. Johnny and Elijah, they are the creators of Cryptid Studies Institute, and we're going to get into to what all that is. I think we've done all our announcements and tried to fill as much of the time as we possibly could with our with what we had. So why don't you guys just kind of, or Johnny, just give us kind of a summary of what it is you guys do.
Well, Cryptid Studies Institute, like I was saying earlier before the show started, we'd been in different organizations over the years, and a lot of times when you get involved with groups, you just don't always mesh. Your methods aren't somebody else's methods. So we decided to come out and forge our own group. And what we wanted to do was have an organization that could actually be fun, where you actually enjoy what you're doing. One of the old groups that we were in, everybody was always bickering and fighting, and it just wasn't fun. The research wasn't anymore. And why in the world would you want to stick around and do something that you didn't enjoy? Because being a cryptid researcher is a very thankless job anyway. Everybody always wants to pick apart your work, and so you might as well enjoy it. So it's always been a love for us rather than anything else. We just have always been fascinated by the subjects of cryptids. So we formed our own group, and we wanted to have a group where if you wanted to join it, if your beliefs didn't mesh with mine, then we're not going to make fun of you. We're not going to tell you you're crazy. We're just going to just accept you, and just try to share as much of our research with whoever wants to hear it as we can. We do have like an inner core, like of serious researchers. Right now, there's Elijah and myself, and we have a forensic scientist who's joining the team in January. We have a gentleman that works with us in is it Illinois or Indiana?
I think it's Indiana.
Indiana, and so he does some outings for us further up north, and then my wife and my daughter, and we right now make up the Cryptid Studies research team. But we like to go and try to see what kind of evidence we can find for, well, really any kind of undocumented creature or beastie, so to speak. We originally got into it because of Bigfoot. We our family heritage back in the 60s. My mother lived on a farm that had a Bigfoot presence for a while, and she always told us tales about these things there on the farm. And so it's always been a part of my life. I remember when we were kids, we'd be at my Aunt Myrtle's house out in the same place near where my mother's farm was years ago. And there'd be some kind of big animal hollering off in the woods, and we didn't know what it was, and they didn't know what to call it, but they'd tell us kids, y'all stay close to the house today. Don't go in the woods. There's a Bob Wowster out there. They didn't know what to call it, so they just made up a name for it. And now that I'm grown and I've been into the research and stuff, and heard these things holler and roar, I know exactly what was out in the woods. But we got into it because of Bigfoot, and then we kind of stumbled upon Dogman. And we really just thought that was a misidentified Bigfoot for a long time until we got to really researching into the phenomenon. And now we look and search for anything, try to document it, but we spend most of our time in the search of Dogman now.
Yeah, that's our probably main priority. It used to be Bigfoot, but we've since become largely interested in Dogman.
Well, it's as little as you hear about Bigfoot in regular, day-to-day life, you hear even less about the other cryptids except Dogman. So you find yourself looking for the Dogman more. I mean, do you just wait for reports to come in? You guys go check it out, or are you out there active? Time frame, weekends? I mean, is this a hobby, or do you guys make work out of this?
Oh, we make work out of it as often as possible. As we'll go, we literally bought the yearly pass to Land Between the Lakes. I'm sure you've heard of the Beast of LBL.
Oh yeah.
So we bought the yearly pass there, so we could spend plenty of time. Then COVID hit us, and we went a few times, and unfortunately, we found out 3 weeks ago that my wife has breast cancer, and that's kind of knocked the wind out of our sails a little bit. But we're trying to work around that and still continue the research and make our documentary films, because we make a lot of documentary films, and it's just a passion for us. We're working on one right now, that ideally wouldn't seem like it would be a cryptid related film, but have you ever heard of the Bell Witch?
Oh yeah.
Well, we're working on a Bell Witch feature right now that we've been working on for about a year and a half, I suppose.
Yeah, thereabouts.
And been collecting a lot of evidence and research, visited different sites down there several times.
A lot of stock
and we
footage.
found that it actually may tie back into cryptids.
Well, why don't you one more thing before Daniela gets into some of you guys' experiences you've had. What is it that tell us a little bit about your team, the more active members who you have, who you go out with. If you you don't have to, you can just make up a name if you want to, but and kind of what do you charge them with? Or does everybody have their own little niche, or is everybody kind of doing the same thing, or what?
Well, largely when we go out, we're all doing the same thing right now. Like I said, we just brought on 2 new members. The gentleman, you want to give his name, the forensic scientist?
Well, his name is Tim, and we've been in talks with him actually for a little while now, and we're just kind of waiting for him to be able to make the trip, come up and see us, and we figure
he's based out of Florida, and he's been doing some research down in Florida for us on the skunk ape.
Mm-hmm.
And our other member, David, he's a field researcher, and he's been doing a lot of the work for us up in the Indiana area, and we've been just hitting Tennessee and Kentucky, and we've made a trip down to the Devil's Crossroads. Where's that at? That's in Mississippi.
That's in Clarksdale,
Mississippi, and Taylor, Mississippi.
But with David up in Indiana, when he comes down, we often go to Land Between the Lakes together, and we'll go to the areas that they've had sightings or alleged sightings. I don't think we've ever been to the kill site with him yet, have we?
No, we have not. The supposed, if you know the legend of the Beast of LBL, you know that there's a family that was supposedly killed. Well, we found what we believe is the actual kill site, and we even made a documentary about it. But we haven't had opportunity to take David with us down there yet, or Tim, and which would be great if we can get Tim up here. Him being a forensic scientist that used to work for the police, would be really good to have him there and look at what we found and let him evaluate it and see what he thinks about it.
That's got to be a major ad, having a forensic scientist join your team.
We're really excited about it.
It's pretty cool. We like him a lot. He's a really good guy, actually.
And someday we hope to include the person who started the organization with me back on the team. You know, we loved working with him, and we hope things work out to where we can be back in the field together, you know.
Exactly.
Well, I'm in Mississippi right now. I'm in South Mississippi, and I don't know if you guys have been to Taylor or not.
Yes, we have.
You have? Okay,
Yes,
so you
sir.
know somebody down there. It's
No, we actually went down there and stayed in a hotel and tried to find some places. We had to was only down for a day or so,
It was an overnight trip, roughly.
but we're planning to go back again very, very soon. You know, depending on how well my wife's treatments go. But we had an interesting idea. Now, you've heard of Robert Johnson, I'm sure.
Robert Johnson.
The famous blues player who supposedly sold his soul at the crossroads.
Right.
And Robert, later in life, he became sort of paranoid and you know, wrote a song about hellhounds on my trail. And I didn't know it at the time, but where Robert was 50 miles from Taylor, Mississippi. Taylor, Mississippi is precipitously close to Clarksdale, where he was at. And we wonder if maybe he encountered one of those dogmen from down there and perceived it to be a hellhound.
That's a very interesting concept and something definitely to think about. You know, a lot of the people in Taylor don't want to talk about any of it.
No, like we found one area. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We
found one area in Taylor, Mississippi down there that we were just going down some old roads, and we went down an old dirt road, and we came to just an old dirt road, and they had a big fence on it with high-tech cameras and everything on it, and big warning signs saying for everybody to stay out of that area. It's nothing that anybody would ever try to.
And it had like an official look too, like it was from
it was
the city.
It was from the city. You know, they had blocked it off and said everybody keep out.
Yeah, Dark Waters kind of made that place famous, and we were talking to him just recently, and he was talking about how much he regretted doing that because of all the people that go down there. And I know someone that went there and just got stonewalled in a couple of places. They didn't stay very long. So I was suggesting that you must have known somebody there already. Mississippi people just shoot you, you know.
Yeah, they're about like East Tennessee people or Eastern Kentucky people. But we when we go somewhere, we try to have respect and not just go marching into somebody's place uninvited. And try to approach subjects very, very softly, so to speak, you know, because you offend somebody and you're never going to get anywhere with them.
And if we do bring something up, it's very, very subtle. And I'll just
sorry.
Let's talk about Dogman then. You said initially you thought it may be a misidentified, you know, just a Bigfoot, but there's features to it that are very different to Bigfoot. And recently, was it Harlan you were at interviewing a lady who described one having a tail? How many other Dogman accounts have you heard where it has a tail?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, I've heard it several times. You know, I talked to a lot of different people, and Elijah talks to a lot of different people. But we've heard from several people that they've seen one with a tail. A lot of times, though, we hear people say, well, I was so afraid that I didn't even stop to notice if it had a tail.
Some people don't even notice it from the waist down. They just see something looming over them, and it just kind of overpowers them.
Yeah, the thing that they all seem to tell us when we interview them or talk to them is that they're so overcome with terror that they'll be like, I've seen this, or I've done this, I've been to war, I've worked for EMTs and seen horrific sights, and nothing affected me like seeing this thing. It was just so horrifying that I never want to see it again. I don't go in the woods anymore. I can't sleep at night. You know, that they all described the same thing, like it almost like it produced some kind of a primal fear in them.
And people, some of their favorite hobbies is going out in the woods or hunting or fishing, and they'll just completely give that up. They have no further desire to go into the woods because of whatever they've seen.
Been there. That's I mean, well, it's essentially a werewolf for all intents and purposes. If as far as anyone that has, as it pertains to a point of reference for someone to see that, they would have to think that's a werewolf, that didn't
Pretty much,
know
yeah.
any better. And
Yes, I think whatever this creature is probably what precipitated the actual legend of the werewolf.
Mm.
If you look back in, was it 17th century France at the Beast of Gedavon?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
This creature that killed and ate over a 3-year period between 1 and 200 people was often described as being like a wolf. Sometimes it went on 2 legs, sometimes it went on 4. It was described as having a tail and being as large as a cow.
Even had kind of like a certain lion-like appearance. For example, the one in Land Between the Lakes, it's been described as having almost like a lion-like mane to it.
So we wonder if it may have been a dogman that carried out the murders in 17th century France.
Right. It's quite possible, isn't it? What do you think sets them apart from other creatures? Most animals run away from humans. These dogmen seem to want to scare the pants off you. What do you think it is about them? Are you thinking they are? Shall we go? Do you think they're just flesh and blood, or do you think there's something else to them?
Well, a lot of people try to convince us that there's something called the Nephilim from the Bible, and we hold a different view on what Nephilim are, but we think it's a flesh and blood creature because they leave footprints, they roar, they scream, they've got a physical appearance enough to break trees. We've been chased out of the woods and sound like a T-Rex coming through the woods at us, and we
they've been sighted before, with a litter of puppies crossing the road with them, which shows, some kind of flesh and blood ability to be able to reproduce.
Yeah, they pick up dead, carrion and eat it. And, a lot of times they're seen with dried blood all over them. So there's something that can be physically affected by blood and gore and things of that nature. So
they'll physically attack cars and leave damage on them. A lot of signs seem to point to something of a physical nature.
But at the same time, they seem very malicious and almost evil spirited.
So we kind of think you could have kind of a couple of things going on. Some kind of flesh and blood creature, but we also believe in demonic forces out there. I wouldn't be surprised if every now and then something assumes that form to try to scare somebody or just kind of leave them confused about what's in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that there aren't some overlapping things, because for years there's been the legend of skinwalkers, out on the Navajo reservations. Then you've got people who see dogmen as a physical thing. And
then, I guess it's possible you could even have some government experiments roaming around. I mean, you just never know.
And then sometimes, everything that somebody sees in the woods every time isn't necessarily a dog man. So you probably have some misidentification in some cases. Then you have probably some overactive imaginations. And then you probably have, unfortunately, I've been in this industry long enough to know that you have some people that just don't always tell the truth.
Yeah.
But I do definitely believe that there's some sort of a creature out there.
And then sometimes you probably have the case of somebody seen a Bigfoot and thought it was something else, probably rare, but I'm sure it happens.
Well, and the same thing, for years, people didn't really know that there was a dog man. They just see something big and hairy in the woods, and all they knew to call it was a Bigfoot because that's all they'd ever heard of.
Exactly.
Well, I was just like you, Johnny. I thought that Dogman was a misidentified Bigfoot, and just the rest was just left to the imagination. They saw this Bigfoot and perceived it to be this Dogman until a good friend of mine saw one, and he was here yesterday talking about it. When he said he saw one, then I just just because of who he is. I didn't have a choice but to believe that is exactly what he saw. He had it in his scope. He could have shot the thing. And he was actually with another guy, Donnie Miller. And I'm leaning a little bit more toward genetic experiment. And it's been suggested that Dogman has not the human intelligence, but more like a wolf. Their tendencies are more like wolf. That's why they don't really attack people as much as when they're seen. Of course, if a Dogman attacked anybody, they're not going to be around to tell you, really. So who knows how many times people have been attacked by these things, and just we'll find their bones in a stump somewhere 20 years from now.
And they tend to hunt in packs too a lot of times.
Yeah, we've heard that too. From Dark Waters actually mentioned that the other day, but we've heard that a couple times. So yeah, I'm that's where I lean. It just seems too unnatural to me to be an evolutionary creature or something that God has created. If you want to go that way with it, I think that we've made these things myself.
Also, the 3-toe aspect. Are you finding all the Dogman accounts that come with a print? They're all 3-toed.
Well, now, not exactly. We've seen some that looked like an actual wolf track, but the thing was 11 inches by 7 inches wide. And we saw a handprint from one in the mud someone had. And it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life.
It is so impressive, though, to look at. Especially when, you hadn't seen anything like that before, but to be introduced to a print like that, it was magnificent in the scope. It
actually looked like it was as big as a dinner plate, if you can imagine that. And this is the front paw. The back paws, was 11 by 7 inches, like I said. And the front paw, or hand, is the only way you could describe it, was as big as a dinner plate, and it looked like a raccoon's hand, but it had big, long claws coming off the end of it. And in the mud where they got the print, all around the wrist, what we would call the wrist here, it was real fuzzy and furry. You could see that even impressed into the mud, which was just words. I can't convey it with words how amazing it was.
Oh,
yeah. You guys need to let us see a picture of that.
Yeah.
Well, it's somebody else's work, so I can't.
Okay.
They did give me a picture of the creature, and I wish to goodness I could show it to you because it is absolutely amazing. They didn't even realize that they had the creature in a picture because they'd been another day. They're taking pictures on the farm, and when they got home, they noticed it. It was just standing there. There's off in a field, and there's like a cabin or a little outbuilding of some sort out in the field, and this thing is standing next to it, and it's a head and shoulders taller than the building is, and you can see the muzzle on it. You can see you can see the ears very clearly. You can see the shoulders. Yes, yeah. It's just you can't look at it and say it's anything else. I've had people go, "Well, that's a deer jumping over a fence," and I'm like, "Man, do you see a fence? There's no fence. That thing is standing there."
And the picture was actually looked at by somebody who worked for NASA, and they said whatever this thing is, it wasn't digitally edited in there. It's a legitimate photo.
That it was a biological creature.
Wow, that's
and like I said, if and when they decide they want to release it to the public, man, I'd love for you guys to see it. It's just amazing.
Well, I mean, I understand absolutely why people don't want, especially if it's around their place. The first thing someone's going to think is, if I put this out there, I'm going to have every crazy person in the world coming out here trying to find this thing. So,
exactly.
Kind of like the Taylor situation. So it's understandable.
I will tell you that it was on the outskirts of a park near Nashville, that close to a major city.
And that's also around where the footprints were found too.
Well, in the same park.
Is the same spot.
Yeah, the footprints and the handprint was found in the park, and the picture was taken just out of the park on somebody's land.
Wow. What about personal experiences, either of you? Have you had any encounters or?
Werewolf Springs, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead and take that one for us.
Our first real experience with what we believe was a Dogman. When I was really young, we used to go camp at this place, and we still do occasionally. It's in Dixon, Tennessee. It's a state park, and we used to do a lot of camping up there.
Montgomery Bell State Park. You know, everybody knows it, so it's okay to say the name.
Yeah, I reckon so. We told it on our channel anyway. But one evening that we were camping there, the ranger came around and he was telling everybody, hey, we're going to have a viewing of a film in our park, and he's inviting everybody to come see it. So, you know, we came and watched it, and it was about the legend of Werewolf Springs, an area on the backside of their state park. It's called Hall Springs, but over the years, it's gained the reputation and gotten the nickname Werewolf Springs. They said in the documentary that in the late 1800s, a circus train was going along the railroad behind the park, and for whatever reason, it derailed, and their box cars that held up, you know, their animal exhibits, they busted open and their animals escaped, and they caught everything that was on the manifest except for a male and a female creature, which was listed as either a wild man or a wolf man of Borneo, and they were never able to recapture that. But following that time, they kept having people say that they were seeing a werewolf over there, and that's how it got its name. There was a landowner and a farmhand. They were carrying something, a glass door or some object in their wagon, I guess back to his property, and they seen the creature standing on the side of the road off the trail, and they tried to, you know, rush the horses along to have it pick up some speed, and it started chasing them. They picked up more speed, and it continued to chase them. Eventually got up to the wagon and started to climb in, and they realized at this point, you know, one of us is going to die, both of us are going to die, so let's make our chances greater. Let's both jump off the wagon and run opposite directions. So they did that. This guy goes this way, this guy goes that way, and the landowner, he runs and hides behind a big log on the ground, big tree falling over, and he hears through the night as he's laying there his farmhand being presumably torn apart and killed. And that's not the only story from there. It's got a multitude of stories. But following that documentary, a few months later, well, actually,
it was just a couple of days later.
Yeah, why don't you tell them what your construction buddies told you?
Okay, yeah. Talking about the same place. I was doing construction at the time, and people kept talking about a place called Werewolf Springs that if you go out there, sometimes at night, and there's a full moon, you'll see this werewolf walking across through the cemetery. And I'm like, oh, that's nonsense. If anything, it's a Bigfoot. And so I didn't put much stock in it, you know, because construction workers embellish tales a lot of times. And so I just filed it away in the back of my mind. And then we went camping and we talked to the ranger and saw the video. So we decided, well, I bet that's a Bigfoot, you know. Let's go out there and see if we can just see or hear anything. And so Elijah and myself, my daughter, my wife, my niece, and my mother, and my sister.
Was my aunt there?
I think Renee was there too. All went out there and were just looking around, you know, don't really expect to see anything. You know, there's a couple of gals get out of a car with a baby strapped to their back, and there's a Boy Scout troop over at a lean-to off in the woods, you know, and so we're just walking around out there, and we see a trail going off side of the woods through this tall grass in this little thicket of pine trees. So we follow it, the little trail off, thinking, it's probably nothing, but we'll see what's going on. As we get in the pine thicket, I noticed that trees about this high up are snapped off. Something was walking through there, just breaking them off. And I'm like, ooh, this looks very Bigfooty. And it's before we really started doing any real research. And so we walked on into the woods. And when we got in there, I noticed that there was a bunch of turkey feathers. And they were in a semicircle, almost perfect semicircle, like something had killed a turkey and squatted down and was just pulling these feathers out. And it just landed in a semicircle around it. And as we're looking at this train off in the distance comes by, and it blows its whistle. And when that thing blew that whistle, something just started howling, and a big mournful, long roar, almost a roaring howl.
It sounded like whatever it was piercing its ears and just terribly hurting.
Yes, this thing, it sounded like an 800 or 900 pound wolf. And man, my niece, she went to it freaked her out. She started to take off running, and I grabbed her real quick and I said, "Do not do that. If that's a big animal out here, you don't run from it. It's liable to attack you."
Literally, it was so loud, it was echoing across that whole backside of the park. I mean,
yeah, you could feel it shaking your whole insides.
Wow.
And we were standing there just in shock, waiting to see if we could see it. I mean, I expected to see some big thing with its arms all thrown out and its head reared back, just howling. It sounded like it was that close, but we never saw it. And as we're standing there in shock, we could see the trail where these two women that had the baby on its back had been walking up through there. Well, they come running back, and the baby's head's just shaking and bobbing around. I thought they was going to break the baby's neck trying to run out of there. And I ran over to the edge where the path was, and I asked them, I said, "Did y'all hear that?" And they're like, "Yeah, we heard that." And I told them, I said, "Look, guys, I can't just leave those Boy Scouts over there like that without saying something." So I walk off, leave my family there all grouped up together, and walk around to where these Boy Scouts are camped. And I'm find the grown up there, and I'm like, "Excuse me, sir, did you guys just hear that?" And the guy turns around very irritated at me, and he said, "No, we didn't. This is a deaf Boy Scout troop." And so he thought I was just being a jerk, and he didn't want nothing to do with anything I say. And so I'm like, "Okay, then, you have a nice day."
But I'm amazed how much that seems like it would happen in a movie. I'm just amazed that
it's almost like a comedy movie, but there was nothing funny about it.
Oh, it's terrifying.
But since then, that time, we went back and we found both Dogman and Sasquatch tracks there, which is an anomaly in itself, because usually we found that when you have Bigfoot and Dogman in the same park or something of that nature, or on the same property, and for whatever reason, almost always the Dogmen stay to the north side of the park or property, and the Bigfoot stay to the south side. I've never found it transversed.
You find that in Land Between the Lakes. That's how it generally always is up there.
Yeah, if you find a Dogman track in the south or a Bigfoot track in the north, well, you found a real anomaly.
Yeah,
because they seem to avoid each other.
How would you identify a Dogman track? What do they look like? I don't think I've ever seen one.
It looks like looks like a dog track or a wolf track, but it almost has like a long hill on it.
It's
everyone I've seen.
It's kind of like a dog's foot. You know how you have the paw pad, and then it kind of thins out down near its ankle heel.
I guess that'd be what you call its hocks or something.
Yeah.
But it's just like an elongated wolf track or a dog track.
It's just a much bigger version of it.
We've actually been working a case somewhat over in Harlan County, Kentucky, where there was a family over there who was being harassed by a dog man, and they seen it was a dog man, and the thing used to come in their neighbor's yard, and it would push their car. I guess they had a automatic standard transmission, and it would literally push their car and push it further down the driveway because the wheels would roll with it. And it would push their car and mess with it. And it would come up and try to get on the porch and mess around the door at this other family's house. Well, one evening, the grandpa managed to get his gun out the door, and he shot this thing in the foot. And the thing run off. And it kept coming back. It would still come back trying to get up on the porch and get in the house, but it would drag that gimpy foot with it. Well, that was a couple of 3 years ago. Now you move forward, and there's a new set of family living about 10 miles away across the mountain as a crow flies. And they're being harassed by something, killing their goats. And it's killing them in a malicious way and pulling the heads off, taking the heads and leaving the bodies displayed around their property. And
Didn't we hear that it was leaving the heads on the car though?
no, that was something different.
That was something.
That was
else?
something
Okay.
different.
My mistake.
But this family, they eventually had to go in with another family down the road and buy a big electric fence to put around their property. These are poor people, but they had to spend everything they had to put up a big electric fence to try to keep it out. But it would, that's it, running through the woods and stalking around and getting outside at the edge of the wood line and howling and scaring their kids and everything. And they was really worried, if this thing's killing their animals, that it might do something to them.
Now, they did describe that, and I quote, like Freddy, it would take its claws and rake them down the side of the house.
Yeah, just like it was trying to scare them. But they had problem with the same thing in the early 80s, and it killed a bunch of, it was goats that time, wasn't it?
Was it sheep?
It was either sheep.
I think sheep.
Yeah, it's goats now, and it was sheep before they had some sheep. And it would kill the sheep and do the same thing. And it didn't last a long time. And it just stopped.
But one of the fellas up there that's been involved with all this, had it happen on his property. Some folks, they went up there and talked to him, and they said, "Lady, if you don't talking about them, it'll get just as bad as it was in the '60s."
Well, yeah, there's an old man that lives a little further down the road from these two families that's have, and they was trying to speak to him and see if he had ever seen anything, and he told them point blank, talking about them makes them worse. You'll have it like it was in the '60s if you don't leave them alone. And I don't know what went on in the '60s, and he wouldn't talk no more about it, but I'd sure love to get him to open up.
He obviously believed, though, that talking about it caused it to show up more and just reappear.
Which is interesting in itself. Yeah. But the reason I bring this story up is that the creature that was shot in the foot, we think is one of the ones that is on the property killing the goats now, because found a footprint, and it matches up to the injury on that thing's foot. It's got a half moon. It's got a big shape missing out of its foot.
It's got a big plug missing out of this. I think the left foot, right?
I want to say it was probably the left foot.
Yeah, like the side of the left foot.
Yeah, but and it seemed to be more of a three-toed. Like you were talking about the three-toed. Yeah. I think this one was a three-toed.
Now, do you generally see more?
A crescent moon.
On that track, do you generally see 4? And then I guess a dew claw would be, if it were more back on a Dogman. Is 3 uncommon? Do you normally see 4?
Is it common to see 4? I think he's asking.
I've seen more 4 toes than I have 3 toes, to be quite honest.
The reason I asked, I had somebody show me some tracks one day. They sent me pictures of very clean, pristine track, and it was a cougar. It was obviously a cougar. It was a cat track. There were no claws, 4 toes. That center pad is a lot more squished in. Canines are more triangular. Cats are more squished in. And then cougars got that distinctive dip right there in the front of their center pad. And I just wonder how many of those get mistaken for a Dogman, because I mean they're the ones he showed me were unusually large. They were probably a good 7 to 8 inches across. Where the toes were. That's the reason I ask. If you see a lot, is 3 toes common, or is it 4 toes that you're more commonly going to see with the Dogman track?
I couldn't tell you which one is the standard. I've seen more 4 toe than I have 3. But I know a lot of people who find the 3 toe. So, but even the 3 toes, it seems to have a more wolfish appearance, so it's not a cat.
Right. You think it could be more than one type of this creature, like a variation of them?
It could be, or it could be like maybe some kind of genetic defect, because in humans and primates, when you inbreed, the first thing it's affected is the feet and the toes.
Well, the creature from Boggy Creek, I think it had 3 toes. I think that was the print they would find.
Yeah, they find a 3-toed print. I don't know if it had claws on the end of it or not.
I don't know.
I'd like to see. I think more like actual toes than like claws on the end of it.
Yeah, I think so.
But I've got a friend who took pictures of she had a dogman on her property, and she took pictures in the snow, or it was like the sand or something. And this thing is so big. She has a 180-pound mastiff, and this thing stepped in the dogman track, and it only took up about a quarter of the track.
Well, I mean, to me, tracks are just interesting to me because I'm a former hunter, and from an analytical standpoint, when it comes to tracks, that's to me the best physical evidence we have, outside of a type specimen. Those things are leaving tracks. That's proof, as far as I'm concerned, that there's a creature out there. Whether what it is exactly, so I guess that's yet to be determined. If we're calling it a dog man, apparently it's got some kind of canine in it. Would you? Okay, let me take you down this path, and then before Daniela jumps back in here.
I can't hardly hear you. You're breaking up really bad. You guys keep fading in and out.
Yeah, it gives
Okay.
you about
Am I breaking up, Daniela?
No, I think it's their end.
Okay, I think it might be your guys' internet going out.
Yeah, ours is right now. It seems to be on your end.
It looked like we had full signal over here.
Yeah, well, we're hearing each other fine, and you guys are kind of breaking up, so that's kind of our indicator. That's all. And plus,
we're breaking up on your end.
Yeah, just a little bit, and we're actually plugged in to the internet, and we're not on Wi-Fi. So, but it doesn't matter who it is; it's happening. No big deal. We'll see if we can't forge ahead. We only got about 10 minutes.
Well, you can try to open it and see if that helps any. Let him open this door and see if that helps any on our end.
Okay.
Our router's on the other side of this door, so it might kind of help with that.
It's a lot. We had a bad delay in the beginning. We've only got about 9 minutes left anyway, and I just had a question, and I think I've lost it.
Okay.
You want to do questions from the chat?
I'm just having a look now and seeing what there is.
Okay.
Yeah, that don't seem to be helping a lot, but we'll try to muddle through anyway.
It's still better. It's better. You guys had just frozen up there for a second when I was talking. I think you could still hear me though. So I just kind of kept going, and I saw it come back. But we're working without a net here. This is a problem that we have a lot of the times. It's always an internet issue. But you guys mind taking a few questions from the chat?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Do y'all mind taking a few questions from our chat? We got about.
Oh, please, we'll answer anything.
I would love to.
There's about 300 people in chat here.
Not having to go back up. I don't think there's that many questions. I don't think all capitals are. Mike Singletary.
Dogman and Bigfoot come for territory and food resources.
Yes, I do to some extent think that they compete for territory and food resources, and we can't prove this. We know that someone had actually on a piece of property saw 3 dog men dragging a dead Bigfoot through the woods. For what it is, we didn't see it, but we're getting the information secondhand.
But from what we were told, though, the who said that, they were just sobbing. They were just
just
terrified at what they saw.
It's usually a good indicator. Tracy Bowers had one there. I just saw. Yep, there it is. Any cast dogman tracks?
I don't know.
I don't know of anybody actually casting a dogman print. I a few pictures on the internet, but you don't know if they're accurate or not, or if they're real without actually seeing them yourself. Seen lots of pictures, but never seen an actual cast. I would love to find one good enough to cast. I've found a nice dogman myself, but it was in the gravel, so there was no way to cast it.
Yeah, there was just no way. But you could see the outline, the shape. It even had a little bit of depth to it, but it was like in the sand. Or, not even really sand, but
it's a little rocky creek bottom.
Yeah.
But not real big pea gravels or anything like that. Just little tiny gravels that's just a little bigger than sand, actually.
Yeah.
But is enough. You could definitely see the definition and everything.
It's
but no
probably
way
about
to
yay
actually.
long, wasn't it? Because you remember we had that phone that's about yay big next to it.
It wasn't quite that. It's,
It's pretty big though, wasn't it?
I'd say 5, 6, 7 inches, something like that.
Okay.
But
That's pretty big. That's big for a dog for sure. Most
Mhm.
people are not just carrying.
it is. It is about 3.5, 4 inches wide. So not one of the big, huge dog men at all, but still probably bigger than you'd want to mess with.
I think it's fairly good size though.
Most people are not really carrying casting material around with them
How
anyway.
large do you think, or if evidence
got
supports 7-foot tall dogman? Yeah.
What does it say?
How large do you think?
Or if evidence supports a 7-foot tall dog man?
I think evidence easily support a 7-foot dog man, or even a few feet taller.
Yeah, I mean, I get a little suspicious when I hear people describing that. Well, I seen it. It must have been 15 feet tall. Well, I don't think you realize how big 15 feet actually is. But if you see something 7 or 8 feet, you know it's going to look a lot bigger to you. Now, having said that, the picture that we've got that we've seen, this thing had to be 8 or 9 feet tall easily, because it was standing head and shoulders above this old building that was outside.
Well, you know, a lot of times when they're sighted anyway, they're described to be as, like, at least on all fours, as tall as a horse. And that'd be big if it raised up on 2 legs.
If you seen one stand up on 2 legs, it probably would rear up kind of high.
Yeah.
You know, and even a grizzly bear, you know, as hard as I imagine it'd be to really believe in a 15-foot Bigfoot, you know, there's grizzly and polars that's 10, 12 or higher, taller feet tall.
You know, a little bit of an interesting additional to the old stories of Black Shuck. He was described in some cases as large as a horse, so they may have been some kind of a dog man. I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah, Black Shuck is a cryptid that was from like England and Wales and Scotland area.
Right.
Wow.
Sorry,
You want to do one more? Joey Hayes.
Any opinions on less reported sightings over the winter months? We've kind of back and forth, haven't we?
Well, no real opinions. I mean, I would think like animal, they try to hunker down as much as possible, you know, and not get out. Everything we've seen seems to indicate that dogmen kind of burrow. You know, there seem to be a lot of mysterious holes, like burrowed into a hole or something.
I mean, there's stories from Land Between the Lakes of them getting in kind of rocky overhangs that are kind of cave-like, and they'll get back up in there, or straw burrows that they'll climb off in. Maybe not an LBL, but...
And it just may be as simple as a lot of times people don't out as much as they normally do in the wintertime.
That's true, too.
You know, a lot of people don't like the cold and just don't get out in it. You know, you have hunters that go, but after the, you know, the snow starts to fall, a lot of them aren't out.
Right.
I was going to say that, but maybe less people out anyway.
Do you think they're more nocturnal?
Do I think they're nocturnal?
Yeah, more so than diurnal, being out there in the daytime.
That's really hard to say.
To be quite honest, they probably get around and hunt more at night because a lot of other animals move at night. But I think these things, they go and do whatever they want to. You know, they seem to be, you know, they say a lion's the king of the jungle. Well, these things seem to be the king of the jungle. You know, they don't seem to get intimidated too much by anything.
Right.
They kind of be very active around 3, 4 in the morning, but over
most every time we've recorded them, a lot of times it's shortly after sunset, and then
like right before sunrise.
Yeah, then right before sunrise.
But you know, like in Land Between the Lakes, to use as an example again, a couple of months ago, somebody reported over the elk and bison prairie in that area that they seen a dog in the daytime crossing a trail. So I guess they really probably just go where they want to.
Yeah, and that was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So
yeah.
that's
we were there that day too.
We were just in the wrong spot. We drove right past the area where one was seen.
I was looking at mine. but we were in the wrong place.
You know, these creatures do seem to be more animalistic than the Sasquatch do. You know, Sasquatch appear to be sentient, self-aware, not necessarily a slave to their stomach, like most creatures, animals that live in the woods that are slave to their stomach and, work strictly off of instinct. Dogman just kind of seems to, go a little bit more toward, to me, it does, just from what I've heard, just have a little bit more of an animalistic nature to it than human type of action. What's your opinion on that?
Sure.
Honestly, about every other word you said came through on that one. I do apologize.
Yeah, I'm sorry, friend.
Yeah, that's probably it. Could be my end. I don't know. Daniela, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah.
Can you guys hear Daniela good?
Can you hear me? They must have a problem on there. Have you
Yeah.
you got a delay again? Yeah, that's not good, is it?
No.
I don't think there's moving in.
No, we got good weather here. You guys occasionally are freezing up for like 5 seconds at a time now.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you can hear me, we've come to the end of our show. We'd love to have you back on. I'm sure we didn't touch on half of what you guys have to talk about. What we appreciate you coming on the show for sure. And make sure everyone go and check out Cryptid Studies Institute on YouTube. And this Friday, we're going to be having Daniel Gebhard on the late show, 9:30 p.m. Central. And you've got something this weekend, Daniela?
Yeah.
Go subscribe to Hidden Existence, and when you get the notification, you'll know.
You'll know there's something on. The Bigfoot Cafe's on, and anything goes on, and maybe Crypt is on. I don't know why I picked such a difficult name to say.
Crypt.
I think just call it the CC.
Okay. We call this the RR. But if you gentlemen can hear us, we appreciate you coming on. Definitely want to get you back for more discussion, because like I said, there's no way we touched on even a portion of what you guys have to talk about.
Well, thank you so much.
We'd love to come back one night and do this for you. Hopefully the internet will work and we can really, chew the fat like a couple of gals on the Ricky Lake show.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Make sure you subscribe. Cryptid Studies Institute. They are on YouTube. And thanks everybody for joining us here tonight. Hopefully we'll see you Friday night, 9:30 p.m. Central, right here. Y'all have a good night.
All righty, brother. Have a good night.